Hello and welcome to week 1 of our 7-week Lunch and Learn Sahaja Meditation Introductory Series. My name is Melanie Pundit, and this class is going to be an overview of the Sahaja technique. A little bit about myself. I have been meditating in the Sahaja technique for about 28 years at this point. I've been teaching for a good 20 years of that. I have a lot of experience that connects me both with the East and the West, India, residing here in upstate New York in America. And I've got a lot from my own personal experience, from my experience meditating collectively with my own family, with my community, on a corporate level that I bring to the class. And I am so glad you're all here with us today. So let's get right on into it. In our class today, we're going to be, in order to really understand this Sahaja technique, we're going to be talking about 4 things. Meditation, what and why. What is meditation? Let's just go ahead and define it. Why? Why do it? We're going to talk about the inner workings of the Sahaja practice, how to actually meditate, what is the technique of meditating in the Sahaja practice, and the root, the origins of where this all came from. So in talking about the definition of meditation, I go to the best possible source that I can find. This is still relatively a very new field or concept or science or medicine. And so it does continue to evolve, but I look at the National Institute of Health, NIH, and look at what they determine, what they have established as the definition of meditation. So meditation is essentially a physiological state of demonstrated reduced metabolic activity, different from sleep, that elicits physical and mental relaxation and is reported to enhance psychological balance and emotional stability. That's a lot. And that's the reference link where that comes from. So it's different from sleep. That's really important that we recognize that. I get that question a lot. It elicits physical and mental relaxation. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. And it's also able to enhance your psychological balance and emotional stability and more. But yes, I agree with all of that. Absolutely. So different from sleep, physical, mental relaxation, enhancing our psyche and our emotions. Let's talk about psychology just for a moment. In Western psychology, there are 3 states of consciousness: sleep, dream, and wakefulness. So where does meditation fit into that? It's not any of that. It's not sleep, it's not dream, and it's not wakefulness. It's actually something else. Let's look at Eastern philosophy. In Eastern philosophy and in several Western religious and mystical traditions, an additional and supposedly higher state of consciousness has been described, so-called 4th state of consciousness, state of mental silence or thoughtless awareness. So how does meditation or the Sahaja practice relate to that? That's absolutely relevant. It is getting you into that 4th state of consciousness, that state of mental silence, or also known as thoughtless awareness. Let's continue to stay east just for a minute. For those of you that are interested in the connection between meditation and yoga, well, yoga sources back to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is one of the oldest recorded scriptures on meditation. And this line truly sums it up, and this is from the Yoga Sutras: Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So what that translates to mean is that yoga is the suppression or stilling of the waves of the mind. Yoga is the suppression or stilling of the waves of the mind. So how does that relate? Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. The stilling of the waves of the mind. So this relates whether we're talking about Western psychology, Eastern psychology, or philosophy, or spirituality. And also in terms of medicine, we can really understand where meditation fits in. It's that state of mental silence. In the Sahaja technique, we're really getting into that state of thoughtless awareness where there's no thought. And I do want to address the difference between mindfulness meditation and meditation that we're talking about in the Sahaja technique. And this, again, comes from the National Institute of Health. This is how it's defined in Washington, D.C. And let's read that all together. So mindfulness meditation is a type of meditation that's based on the concept of being mindful or having increased awareness of the present It uses breathing methods, guided imagery, and other practices to relax the body and mind and help reduce stress. It's also known as mindfulness relaxation and mindfulness-based stress reduction. So how does that relate? Well, in the Sahaja technique, we're not doing any breathing methods, we're not doing any guided imagery, but we are intending to relax the body and the mind and help reduce stress. So let's look at how that relates to the definition of meditation according to the NIH. Meditation is a group of techniques, most of which started in Eastern religious or spiritual traditions. In meditation, individuals learn to focus their attention and suspend the stream of thoughts that normally occupy the mind. This practice is believed to result in a state of greater physical relaxation, mental calmness, and psychological balance. Practicing meditation can change how a person relates to the flow of emotions and thoughts in the mind. So how does that relate? Well, if meditation is all about focusing your attention and suspending the stream of thoughts, that's exactly where we want to be. So fantastic job, NIH. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Resulting in a state of greater physical relaxation, mental calmness, psychological balance, absolutely. And this is really the crux of it, focusing the attention and suspending the stream of thought. So mindfulness, concept of being mindful, having increased awareness, it doesn't actually describe even itself as suspending the stream of thoughts. And that's truly the difference between mindfulness and meditation as a whole, specifically the Sahaja technique. We're really talking about suspending the stream of thoughts. That's not to say that it's not working to increase awareness or to relax the body and the mind and reduce stress, absolutely. But without using any real mental active techniques like breathing or guided imagery where your brain is somewhat active, we're looking to get into a quieter place. So let's talk about how that quiet, how our brain is measured, that brain activity. And it's measured in wavelength. And our slowest brain activity is delta, and we go all the way up to gamma. And if we look at this incredibly active frequency, that's where our thoughts are most active. That's where we may have anxiety, seizures. And as we go down, where our state changes as our thoughts reduce. Our state changes. So in beta, conscious thought, external focus. In alpha, spacey, receptive, passive. Theta, subconscious, creative, and meditation. Online, it's a big thing nowadays, theta meditation. Music for theta meditation, trying to induce that state of theta or reduced brain activity. And delta, intuition or insight. And specifically, where do different states lie on this? Well, our normal waking consciousness is right here in beta. Our deep meditation is there in theta. Our deep NREM sleep, which is our healing sleep, is in delta. That's also where we have our memory consolidation. And our cell regeneration and tissue repair. So let's zoom in just for a minute. And this is pretty obvious, I would think, but let's look at each one of these peaks as a thought or an aspect or a moment or a blip of mental activity. One little blip. So as we are up on our frequency, we've got lots of blips. We've got lots of frequency, lots of happening going on in our mind. And as we go down, theta and delta, we have less peaks, less activity. And in doing so, as we reduce in our activity, our brain activity, our mental activity, our thoughts, the space between our thoughts increase. So here we've got thought. It's almost impossible to see the space, to identify, to locate the silence or the space in between. But as our thoughts reduce, those gaps, those valleys also increase. As our thoughts are less, the distance between them increases. And so as those distances increase, it's easier to see them, to locate them, to identify them. And actually, rather than living on those peaks, jumping from hilltop, mountaintop to mountaintop, one to the other, to the other, to the other, we can actually lie in the valley and rest in that silent space which exists between our thoughts. In Eastern philosophy, spirituality, it's known as vilamba, the space between the thoughts, that silence between the thoughts. And that is truly the present moment. And that's what we're doing in the Sahaja technique. We're looking to get into that absolute silence between our thoughts. Now, why to do it? Why meditate? Well, very briefly, and I have a much longer presentation that gets more in detail of this. I'm not going to do that today. There's lots of research out there. I'm not going to talk about research that doesn't relate to the Sahaja technique because it's basically irrelevant. It may have relevance, but there is some research specifically about the Sahaja technique in why it helps, and specifically focusing some studies, 2016, 2018. The research shows that long-term meditators in the Sahaja technique, based on MRI reasoning, experience a sustained ability to be attentive, sustained attention, cognitive control, emotional control, interoceptive perception, and feelings of compassion. So better ability to control and identify and experience emotions and limit emotions, have a balanced relationship with your emotions, and also attention and cognitive control through the long-term practice of the Sahaja technique. Also an increase on the physiological level in a regional increase in gray matter volume, and a reduced gray matter volume, in case you're not aware, is correlated with aging, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So regional increase, and also in the later research, there's a view that of an overall increase in gray matter volume. So not just regional, but an overall increase in gray matter volume. Fountain of youth, reduce in gray matter volume. I would say that's something that we should look at, but I personally believe that that's absolutely what we're talking about. And let's talk a little bit more about the inner workings of Sahaja to look at all the other different ways in which this helps us on the physiological, mental, emotional level as well. So the inner workings of the Sahaja technique is based on a subtle energy system. And this is something that historically you can look back, it's discussed both in the East and in the West. If we look back historically in religious and non-religious texts, there is reference to all of this in terms of that there is an energy system within us, there's energy within us. I encourage you to take this as an hypothesis, but through the practice of Sahaja, what is hopeful is that you will experience it and prove it for yourself rather than believe me just because I tell you that it might be true. So if we have a subtle energy system within us, its intention is to balance, strengthen, and reestablish. That's what we want to do. We want to reestablish this potential within us. It's comprised of 3 different parts. We can say inner energy, 3 energy channels, and 7 energy centers. So an energy that works through 3 channels and 7 centers or chakras or wheels of energy. The inner energy, let's start with that very briefly. We'll talk more about it in subsequent weeks. It's known in the East as Kundalini. It is located in the sacrum bone, which is the triangular bone at the base of the spine. In medical science is known as sacrum. That means sacred. And it's wrapped in 3.5 coils, and it's dormant. It is awakened through meditation. It's recognized as a feminine energy and a healing energy. And when it is awakened, it is able to balance and heal and strengthen and regenerate and nourish our entire subtle system. There is also within us 3 energy channels in which our energy works. We have a left channel. That left channel is representing our past, the pure desire, our moon channel. So all of what happened, everything in the past, and our desire to actually activate things. And our right channel is that action. It's our future channel. It's the sun channel. It's the actual doing. So we've got our potential and our kinetic energy, and we'll talk more about this next week. And then we have our central channel, and that's the channel of our evolution, the present. So we've got our past, present, and future. The central channel is the channel of our evolution. This inner energy, Kundalini, rises up this channel, and in doing so, it strengthens that central channel and it reduces some extremes, which we'll get to right now. Our 7 energy centers, from the base of the spine all the way up to the top of the head, 7 energy centers, wheels of energy or chakras. They govern our well-being on a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical level. When they're balanced, they manifest positive qualities. When they're imbalanced, we have problems. And we'll go through these energy centers, talk a little bit about them and their aspects as we go through this 7-week series, so you understand a little bit about what's going on as this inner energy starts to work. When this inner energy rises up, it starts in that dormant state at the sacrum bone, and it slowly rises up our central channel, ultimately reaching up to our 7th energy center, or crown energy center at the very top of the head. This point at the top of the head is known as the fontanelle bone. In medical science, fontanelle means little fountain. And when that energy rises up and reaches that fontanelle bone, or 7th energy center at the crown of the head, it's known as self-realization, or the union, or yoga. Yoga actually means union between that which exists within us, or our inner energy, and that which exists all around us. So that uniting, or that actualization, or that realization from within. And it's recognized to be an incredibly powerful experience in Sahaja. We're not talking about, well, years down the road, you may have that experience. The unique aspect of the Sahaja technique is that it actually starts with that goal. We're talking about today, right here, right now, having the opportunity for our inner energy to rise up and reach the crown of the head and have that experience of self-realization, and then start from there. And that's the real unique, wonderful aspect that's offered in this technique. As I alluded to, when our system is out of balance, we have these imbalance manifested. And so on each of our energy centers, we've got different imbalances that correlate to those energy centers. As our Kundalini, our inner energy, rises up, it takes those imbalances. So let's say at the first energy center, shrewd and foolish, or we'll start at the top, 6th energy center, reactive and arrogant, becomes forgiving and humble. At the 5th energy center at the throat, that guilt or shame or loneliness begins to manifest as diplomacy and collectivity. At the heart level, our insecurities, our fears become confidence and compassion. At the 3rd energy center, at the stomach, the feeling of being misguided or undisciplined or unsatisfied or miserly transforms into dignity, righteousness, the feeling of peace, absolute satisfaction, and generosity. At the 2nd energy center, being unfocused, our attention being weak, unable to focus, or being uninspired, becomes a strong attention, being able to focus on what you're doing and be attentive and be creative. And at the 1st energy center, shrewd and foolishness, kind of corrupt mind or corrupt activity, transforms into innocence and wisdom. So it's a beautiful transformation that happens on the psychological, physiological, mental, emotional level, on all of those levels as our energy centers get into a balanced state. So now let's talk about how do we do it, and we're going to get right into that. So in the Sahaja technique, we're talking about a very simple technique because we want it to be easy. Sahaja actually means easy or simple or spontaneous. We're talking about a very easy, simple, and spontaneous action. And again, what do we want to do? We want to focus our attention and suspend our thoughts. Get into that state of thoughtless awareness. Find those valleys, find those gaps between our thoughts. So what we're doing is we're directing our attention to the silent gap between our thoughts. So that's mentally what we're doing. We actually have to work to redirect our attention away from what we've been conditioned to do, what we're used to doing, what we habitually do, which is jump from mountaintop to mountaintop, but rather dive into those valleys, find the silence, and allow that silent gap to expand. Being between the past and the future, directing our attention right above the top of the head, right at the present moment. So rather than focusing on the left or the right, the past or the future, we're going to bring our attention into the present moment and try and focus our attention up and above the top of the head. If we put our attention, every one of our thoughts is related to either the past or the future. Either we're ruminating, regretting, processing the past, feeling resentment, sadness about the past, or we're projecting, preparing for, predicting, being anxious about the future. So all of our thoughts are either on the past and the future. That's an incredibly empowering thing when we realize that we actually always are thinking about the past or the future. what is the best place to be when we're in the state of meditation? Not that, not the past, not the future, but being right here, right now, in this present moment. And you'll find it's incredibly hard to think about what's happening right here, right now. When you really dive into this moment, you find that silence. And it doesn't require a whole lot of time. Twice a day, creating a conducive space for this process to take place for 10 or 15 minutes twice a day. First thing in the morning, last thing at the end of the day, or any 2 times in the day will help to nourish this experience. We're going to sit with our hands open and our fingertips apart. That's our home position. So we don't have to put our fingers together in any way. We're working on each one of our energy centers, which are reflected in our fingertips. We'll get to that later. So our hands open, fingertips apart, right on our lap. So we can open our hands on our laps, sit nice and comfortably, keep our attention in thoughtless awareness, and I'll help you get there. So focusing on the present moment, focusing between our thoughts and trying to bring our attention up and above the top of the head. So as I mentioned, this class has a little bit more to talk about. Just going to wrap up with the origins of the Sahaja technique. Where did this come from? Why have I not heard about it before? So this technique in its form that you're learning today was founded by Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi. She was born in India and lived much of her life in Europe and traveling around the world, truly an international person. She passed away in 2011, and in her incredible years, she was a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, a multiple-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee. She was involved in her youth before India achieved its independence in 1947. She was heavily involved in the Indian independence movement, truly working for freedom of humanity, having freedom from chains, being liberated on the political level. And then she moved on to really teaching people how to have freedom on the mental level, on the physiological level, on the emotional level. And so she started teaching Sahaj, this technique, in 1970, always offering it for free, never charging a dime for this practice. It doesn't get better by paying for it. So why pay for it? All of us that teach it, we're all volunteers. Anyone can experience it. It doesn't discriminate. This energy doesn't discriminate. We all have access to it. Change comes from within, and absolutely no money involved. So we're all absolute volunteers. We do it because we've incredibly had beautiful experiences, continue to have beautiful experiences in our life. The organization itself is a nonprofit. It's a very grassroots organization. It now exists in Sahaja exists in more than 130 countries. In this country, we have working relationships with Health Corps, which was founded by Dr. Oz, which incorporates bringing health into the public school system. And so we offer meditation as part of their program. We're their meditation component. We also work with UNESCO to help promote global peace and understanding. And of course, classes are always free. I want to make sure you heard that. So let's get ready for meditation. We're going to sit in our home position, fingertips apart, hands open. If you're wearing glasses, I encourage you to take them off. You actually can close your eyes initially. There's nothing that you need to look at. So home position, hands open, fingertips apart. And actually, one more thing. We're going to look at the screen. I apologize. Just to prepare for our meditation, we are going to do some affirmations and gestures today. This is actually helpful for the first time that we're meditating. So we're going to use our right hand, and you don't have to memorize this. I will guide you through it. So in order to activate this energy, these simple affirmations and gestures are incredibly useful. You can always do them again and again, but you don't have to do them on a regular basis. I offer them usually in our first class because it does help to activate this energy. So we'll start by placing our right hand on the heart. I'm going to just introduce these gestures, and then we'll do them in our meditation with our eyes closed. And I'll guide us through some affirmations that we'll be saying with our eyes closed that help us to really focus within and focus on our inner energy. So first, our right hand on the left side of the heart, and we'll bring our right hand to the lower part of our stomach near the left hip. So our right hand is near our left hip. Come up to the left side of the stomach. So right hand near the left side of the stomach. Back up to the heart, right hand on the left side of the heart. Then we'll take our right hand and bring it to the left side of the neck, turning our head to the right. So our right hand is where our neck meets our shoulder. left side of the neck, our right hand on the left side of the neck, and turning our head to the right. So we're really opening up that area. Then we take our right hand to the forehead, right hand right across the forehead, and we'll bend our head forward to rest our head into the palm of the right hand. And finally, our last position is taking our hand and placing the center of the palm on the crown of the head. And in doing so, if you can stretch your fingers so you've got some nice tension on the palm, and place that palm with stretched fingers right on the crown of the head, and we'll be gently rotating or pressing and rotating, giving that fontanelle bone area, that area that was soft in our infancy, a gentle massage by pressing and rotating, focusing on giving a massage to the scalp rather than just moving our hands, but giving a gentle massage, pressing and rotating. And I'll be guiding us through. You don't need to remember them, but you've been forewarned. So let's get into our meditation once again.